you can tunnel network ports from the remote machine to your local machine.
I've used it in university actually because we had like an account on the university campus. That was like our virtual machine, and from my laptop I could access my account and everything. So I've used it, but not too familiar with it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Someone...
Okay. Yeah.
This is the
one question I would have had about SSH. Like, I have this one machine I have to SSH to, but then I have to do a sudo su to the actual application account. And there's a free tool called WinSAP that allows you to do the sudo in the SSH to copy files with a change in who you are. And I don't know how to do it. I can't see how to do it with the command line. So I would love to see if someone could tell me how to do that. What I end up doing is I have a file that's a named pipe, and I tar on my local machine to that name pipe that I own, and then on the other side I read from that name pipe to untar, and so I can transfer files that way. But it's given this one tool can do that, there must be a way to do it.
What is your background, Dave? If you don't mind me asking.
My degree is in physics.
Okay.
But like a lot of people in the early mid-80s who graduated in physics but not with a PhD, I got into more computers. So I did things like we did my first real job after university was simulating F-18 aircraft for maintenance people. So you're basically simulating the internal workings, and we even had to simulate a lot of the internal programs in their flight control computers, and we had these great big panels where people could put in a multimeter to see if their wire break there. There's even throttle and heads up display, and there was a laser video thing that would actually show, okay, when you do this.
Good evening, Falco. I'm not sure he's there.
But it was a simulation of the aircraft. It's basically the aircraft is just basically on the ground. But there's a lot of things that people have to do to an aircraft to maintain it or diagnose what's wrong. And at the time, I think most of the companies who made the aircraft, I think F-18 was McDonnell Douglas, their offering was just like, you just had a canned set of things. It may not, the canned set of things may not actually be correct, but as long as it follows.
This is Sergio, yes?
Yes, like a book.
Hi,
we haven't met personally, actually.
I'm Alex.
Alex,
I'm
nice meeting
running
you.
this whole disaster area.
Another David. I remember Dave Doyle.
Yes. Yeah, Dave Doyle is, I guess, one of the past organizers of this group.
Yeah, I know. I haven't been around for a while.
Sure.
I kind of joined, a month ago, I think.
Oh, very
from
good.
Brazil, right? And remember, I was the guy that joined. Then I was very surprised, but I'm back.
Good.
What's happening?
Welcome back.
I see there's pizza.
There's pizza and beer. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
Are you guys streaming?
I'm streaming just from my laptop here because we don't have a presentation tonight. But I want to know
the SSH guy.
The SSH guy bailed on the meeting today at lunchtime. So anyway, my plan is that we'll come up with some ideas for our presentations for future months, and see what else we can scare up. He did say, he apologized and he said, look, I know you guys go out for beer afterwards. Can I buy you guys some beer or something like that? So I suggested that, that's a bit complicated, but I am paying for the meetup.com subscription that organizes the thing. So I forwarded my latest receipt and I said, well, if you could pay some of this, that would be lovely. So I haven't heard back, but that would be good. Unfortunately, meetup.com is not free.
How much do they charge?
I think it's, the last bill was $90 US for 6 months.
For 6 months?
Yeah, so it's.
Well, why don't you do a subscription? Like we can.
Yeah, I guess I just.
I mean,
thought,
this is like common interest for.
Yeah. Well, I guess you know what, my goal is to get. I'd love to get like a dozen people out regularly. If I can get a dozen people out regularly, then I can collect a loonie or a toonie. Then that would be great. That would be great.
Well, I'm all for it, right? Like I'm already, scared that Pearl is kind of, like I had to change my profile on LinkedIn and put Python there to be noticed, right? So Pearl no longer comes up as, an important kind of language, right? So I'm like, I've been working as a contractor forever, right? Mm-hmm. So you imagine how important that is. Right? So Pearl is not considered important anymore.
Well,
it's not out there. Right?
My current job, I got my current job because the CTO of the company I'm working at said, "Oh, hey, I found you on LinkedIn. We're looking for people like you." And I was like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, Pearl people are really hard to find." And I thought, "Yeah, maybe."
No, but it is Pearl. So you're working,
Yeah, I've been working in Pearl for 20 years.
Like PHP, Java, which I don't mind, but
yeah,
Pearl.
And I've done a little bit of PHP. I've not done any Python or Ruby, the other languages. And so I said, well, yeah. He said
Python, like back in the early 2000s, we Perl programmers at the time. We considered it a bit like the language that you use to teach kids how to program. Because how can you take seriously a language where you have to
the indentation.
And plus, oh, come on, let's not put curly brackets there so the kids don't get confused. So, but the fact is, like any other programmer, right? You can program Python. Right?
Sure.
It's not a big deal, or PHP, right?
Yeah.
That's not a big deal at all, right? And for Perl programmers,
Yeah. So it's funny you mention that because one of my jobs many years ago was at a desktop publishing company, back when desktop publishing was a thing. And they had written so they'd written their program in Pascal, Turbo Pascal. And again, Turbo Pascal, you talk about a kindergarten.
Yes, it was.
So it's like
the language we invented to teach kids. I remember that.
It's a teaching language developed at the University of California in San Diego for teaching.
For teaching, yes.
Not for production.
That was my joke with the Python programs. I have one of my best friends, right? He lives in Australia now.
Yeah.
And he came to, I'm Portuguese, by the way, and I was working in Portugal Telecom, right? This online search engine that they have there called Sapo. And this other guy came in and he was a Python programmer, right? This is like 2006, I think, 2006. And the guys at Portugal Telecom were heavily Perl. The whole shop was Perl, right? Sapo was Perl. Everything was Perl, right? And this guy comes in and they doubt that he is able to do Perl, right? So he resolved their test. They gave him a test. They resolved the test in Perl, then in PHP, and then in Python.
Very good.
He said, okay, and I said, well, it's funny because yes, this is true, right? If you are okay with Perl, you can do either of the other two. in my opinion. And I have been doing that for a long time, as a matter of fact. You know. Still, I that indentation thing, it's like, and now there's a new one. It's called Go.
Yeah,
Go, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
an offset of Python, right?
Yeah, and one of my colleagues uses a language called Rust, and he wrote a really interesting package in there, which is called TCSSH. But it's basically you can give it a list of host names, and then it'll open up a window for each of the hosts, and then you can type commands into a master window, and it writes those commands to each one of the SSH sessions you've got running, which is very handy if you want to go to, 8 or 10 or 12 hosts and run the same command on each one. You may be looking for a specific file, which is very cool.
That just reminded me. You guys are familiar with the vacations in Cuba and their system with the little card that you have to authenticate?
No.
No. So they give you like a little card. They give you you have to buy it.
Uh-huh.
So the Cuban system is like you have to authenticate every session against this little card, which has two numbers, right? A username and a password. Right?
What is it when you're on vacation in Cuba?
When you are in Cuba, the internet access system in Cuba is
okay.
based on this.
Oh, I see. It's internet
So-
access. Yeah.
And vacations because I want to go to Cuba in vacations, right? I
Okay.
don't work there, right? And anytime I go there, I'm so aggravated by the damn thing. Like you have to go and like the Wi-Fi network is open everywhere, right? But then it pops up the authentication screen where you have to go and scratch your card and enter like this, 12-digit number plus another 12-digit number. And, this is so, like, like whatever, right? And I was thinking, how to come up with a little app, whatever it is, right? That you could just buy 5 cards. Oh, and those cards are time limited, by the way. Like they are 1 hour limited. Buy 5 cards, right? Put all the freaking numbers in there and have your phone manage it or your computer or whatever, right? Like manage the session, say, okay, it's hanging out, like, just go to the next one, something like that. Of course, I didn't take it seriously yet because it's not work. But it's very aggravating. And by the way, Cuba is excellent for vacations. It's cheap.
Yep. Never been. Okay.
Anyways, Alex, so themes for the next session?
Yeah, so I've got January talks, February talks. I'm just taking notes here. March talks. We might be able to get Olaf talking about the Pearl Toolchain Summit. So when we met in where we had our social in December, we had it on a day when that happened at the same time as when Olaf was hosting the Pearl Toolchain Summit. So a bunch of people come into town, they're sponsored, and they do work on the Pearl Toolchain stuff around Meta CPAN and about building packages and all that stuff. And I was hoping to get some kind of update on how that went. It's always good to hear.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That would be excellent.
So unfortunately, Olaf's not available in January and February, so I penciled him in for March. Haha. Well, I guess that's the earliest he could do it. And I don't know if anybody else was there who is local who could talk about it. But
Fortunately, I don't think I have anything that I could talk about that would be, good enough as you guys do.
yeah, it doesn't need.
It's good enough, I think.
Now, I think that there's a lot of Pearl already exploded in this group, right? Like, and we had guys like Conway coming here and whatever, right?
Yeah. Oh God.
What the hell can I do? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
And
let's-
I'm not a computer scientist.
Let's not compare ourselves to
Yeah,
Damien Conway.
I'm a
Damien
business-
Conway
a business
is
programmer.
a one of a kind
Yeah.
kind of a guy.
And even like, what was his name? Brian DeFoy came here. I think,
Yes.
Right? Brian
Yeah,
DeFoy.
many years ago. Yeah,
Right? These guys are like,
yeah,
the guys, right?
yeah. So
And
anyway,
even within our group, there's people that are so,
mhm.
much better to talk about Perl than I do. I could talk about other things, like, for instance, like this stuff comparing with Python and the fact that the job market now, right, is kind of forgetting Perl, right, outside of the scientific community, right, which still uses Perl heavily, right, like for aerospace or bioengineering or whatever, right. Basically, these are non-programmer scientists that use Perl as their basic language to produce, their whatever work they're doing, right? Like lots of things, right?
Right.
But
So
outside
it's
here-
really, if we've got some example of Perl being used in the workplace or Perl solving some interesting problem, that's
what
all.
I can say, and
that's
what
all
I've
good for a
been faced
presentation.
with is migrations, right? Like migrating Perl, right? Basically procedural Perl, old companies that have all these pieces of code forgotten there, that are doing batch processing, ETL, whatever, and they want to migrate it to new systems, right?
So migration.
Of procedural Perl into modern Perl in one hand, and migrating Perl to other languages like Java. Usually, it's the preferred one. Unfortunately, .NET comes there as well, like C# and stuff.
All right. I'm just taking notes here.
In terms of job market, like for a contractor like me, that's what I get a lot of times, right? Like I've been hired a lot just to do that. And Perl is perceived as a legacy type of language, right? And attached to legacy systems, and usually the businesses want to migrate it to better languages.
Okay. Did you see that the recent comment about how if you used a debit card, the odds are 7 out of 10 that transaction went through COBOL code?
Oh, yeah.
COBOL is also
I know
legacy.
that for a fact.
Yeah. So there's probably a lot of legacy Perl out there
And
too.
also, Perl is such a tool to migrate COBOL. Like whatever in COBOL is there, you can use Perl as your tool
Sure.
to manipulate those stupid files, COBOL files, and translate them and then migrate them to something else,
Yeah.
throughout the
Well,
process.
and the contract I had at Manulife basically used Perl to prototype data conversion from basically old format to new format.
Yeah.
And then once that migration was done, that tool wasn't used to migrate data. I just documented the transformation, the code did, and then they used that to encode an SQL conversion.
Very similar to one project that I had at TD. Toronto.
Yeah, so the reason they do it that way was because developing it in the SQL is far too time consuming. But to do it in Perl, it's quite quick, and that'll give you the logic you need. And then once you've got the logic, and you go and do it in this other language, and I wish I could remember what it was. But it was great, got the thing all done. And so it was supposed to be done by a certain deadline. And so Manulife got theirs done on time. All the other insurance companies asked for and got a 1-year extension. And apparently they just asked for a second 1-year extension because they're still not ready yet. And it's all to do financial reporting to the government. So it's one of those things where the government's like, okay, we'll give you another year, but you got to have that done.
Yeah.
Because they want the reports. And when the government asks, it's not really a request. It's more like a command. It's like a royal request, right?
Do it or die.
Right. All right.
One question I had for
Yeah.
you guys, right? Because I've been like in Brazil, Perl is used everywhere, right? Because the Brazilian government actually it kind of did its bet on Linux, right? And every school, public school there, actually teaches Perl. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's like
It's
something
Only in
Yeah, in Brazil. Why? Because the government invested so much in this, former government, as a matter of fact, but invested so much, right? Like in Linux, in all open source technologies and whatever, right? That it's widespread, right? It's like they don't even consider it like a big deal to be a programmer not knowing Perl, kind of thing. So it's still prevalent, right? Especially at the government, the government environment, right? Kind of thing.
Well, it's a language that's very powerful and it's free, so it's really a good choice compared to something from Microsoft, which is going to be expensive, and in 2 or 3 years' time, they could be phasing it out in favor of something new.
But how can you convince like an executive on a company, right, the CTO or whatever, right, that actually it's not a good idea to get rid of all that Perl code in favor of some Microsoft solution? Right?
And I understand from the company point of view, they don't want to have all this technology in place and then have it, and then it's impossible to hire people who can maintain the code.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges.
I think that's the main challenge.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the perception that the perception, in fact, it's now a reality that it's really hard to find Perl programmers, but no one is looking for them anyways, right? It's like
I think
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
there's maybe a couple other things
Exactly.
going on as well. Like a lot of people started using Perl at the .com bubble, doing CGI
the
programming.
.com bubble was.
There were, I remember seeing a lot of stuff that had been done that
Yeah.
it was obvious they didn't know the language. It was their first thing.
That's the only thing that was there.
And I think a lot of people, that's their idea of what Perl is. There's that stream.
It's a legacy language.
There's that. So they never. I think a lot of people didn't spend enough time in it to get a good grasp of it. The other side was more like that uses for system administration, and I think that's never been.
As Perl is a script language, of course. That doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. I don't think that, but the people who got introduced via the CGI program, I think that maybe left didn't leave a good taste in their mouth because. Do you know about CGI programming?
You guys do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The common gateway interface, CGI programming. It's the way.
It's what web pages were built on,
Yeah, that's
starting 25 years ago. So the websites were started to.
Amazon was built in Perl.
So there's no lifetime of any variables or any context between hits on
You have to
pages.
keep states, right? Like
So there was all this stuff keeping state in the page itself and
Oh, dear,
breaking
I remember those times.
things up. It's a really ugly kind of approach to things.
sessions and then the cookies, keeping state through hidden input variables.
fields.
We still do that.
Sure.
We still do that, right? Even with PHP, you have to keep like sometimes you have to keep like a hidden variable, right? Yeah. But
But
anyways,
if you can think about doing web programming that way, it's really ugly.
hence they came up with PHP because the whole idea was to integrate the whole web output within your own code. So PHP is like almost an offshoot of Perl, right? It was like they called it hypertext preprocessing, right? Like the whole idea was, okay, so with PHP we don't have to do that whole, process, all those shenanigans of CGI and whatever. And then they invented Python. So, yeah. But anyways, just recently I did this migration at Walmart here in Mississauga, Toronto, Walmart labs, that they had this legacy system. They called it the web applications that controlled their
Well,
He controlled their warehouse and distribution, whatever, logistics, right? Basically logistics, all in Poland, right? And the whole scare there was is that Walmart decided to go, well, global. Walmart perceives Amazon as their competitor.
Mhm.
And I laugh at that. Yeah, because
They're kind of in different businesses.
because look, Amazon, Walmart. Okay, so no. But anyways, they perceive Amazon, or they pursue, the goal of becoming like Amazon, right? Anyway, so they needed to convert all these logistics programs that they had living in Linux servers and whatever into a more modern approach, right? And the idea was migrating everything, all code, into .NET code, like C Sharp, whatever, right? .NET. Fortunately for them, right, the director, the manager responsible for this process, he had a better idea. He said, "No, come on, like this is going to cost us like infernal amounts of money, and it's terrible." And they keep a team of 4 pro programmers on staff. They have 4 pro programmers, right? And with contractors, whatever. Okay. So the whole idea now is the new migrated version is actually modern Perl, right? So we object oriented it, right? Like the modern Perl. And it's no longer CGI. So now we put a lot of jQuery on it, so it's no longer the old style, right?
yeah,
So it doesn't look like the old Perl anymore, right? Like it's Perl, yes, but it doesn't look like the old Perl, like it's classes and whatever, modules and whatever, right? And this is the funny part. At least 2 of the programmers on staff there, they have never heard of what's BLAS or what. Really. So, you imagine how things get stagnant like that. So people that are on the same job for 15 years, right? And they need to learn anything else.
But that's pretty basic.
So it's-
But what I'm
It's
saying
like
is,
the story of do you have 15 years experience, or is it 1 year repeated 15 times?
Yeah.
But I've got a very shallow understanding
it's
of
a
what
very
Perl
shallow,
is.
yeah, repeating the same thing, not having the need or the challenge to do anything else, right?
there's that, or maybe not. If they don't have a big amount of initiative, then if they even ask to say, hey, we could do some stuff, the management doesn't want it. It's not broken. Well, why change it?
If it's not broken, why change it? That's exactly the spirit. They were very surprised when I told them, of course we can integrate it with jQuery. What are you talking about? What? Duh. Oh, React, right? Because that's the new thing, right? The React JS.
That's the newer one, yeah.
But of course we can do it. We can, use React. I don't see, why we should insist on that as the holy grail of the whole thing. But yes, we can if that's what you want, right? Basically, what you needed was to integrate everything with their, to be compliant to whatever the Walmart home office wanted, right? And it doesn't matter to them if it's Perl or not. It just matters if it's compliant with their standards, and that we can do, right? And we can live. And our code is faster than most of .NET code there,
Mhm.
and our code is actually more versatile and easier to maintain.
Yeah, also the advantage that Perl has is that you're not writing your own protocol stack. You just get something from CPAN and use that. Or you're going to format dates and times. You don't have to write that stuff from scratch. You can, but you'd be wrong if I can use the most polite word I can think of.
No way.
You just use the date time module and you go from there.
We just use CPAN for everything. Oh, that's another thing. Just like I spent maybe a week and a half just updating freaking CPAN modules on the house, right? It was like terrible. I mean, it was so outdated. It was unbelievable, and security, they don't let me start. But it's done. I loved it, and it's working. And the main thing that I love is that they did not need to get rid of Perl. So what was working in Perl before is still working in Perl, and it's modern Perl.
Did they end up using any web framework?
Like
Catalyst or?
No. We did it. Actually, we built our own framework. Why? That's a good question, actually. Why? Because they were very suspicious of those outside frameworks like Catalyst or Amazing or whatever, yeah. So, but it wasn't such a complex situation. We didn't really need to do that, right? We created our own framework, not a big deal, actually. For someone who knows how to do it, it's not really a big deal. It wasn't a very complex, business problem at all,
And it's addressing logistics stuff.
It's logistics.
So it's not facing the
No,
So it's not customer facing?
It's not customer facing. It's internal, right? Like the guys at the warehouse, the guys that are, for instance, to give you an example, the guys have like the receiving docks, right? And some of the stuff that comes in, right? It's not non-compliant with the Walmart standards for this or that reason. Like the package is too big or too small, whatever, right? And they have to enter this exception, right, into a system that is a Perl system, of course, whatever, or anything else for that matter, right? Everything on the warehouse, on the logistics warehouse, everything is based on Perl. There's a program for everything on that warehouse, including, like they have voice commands, right? Like they have like a little thing that the guy has a little trolley that goes around and pulls out stuff and whatever, and he commands, robots, right? Which is totally processed through an engine developed.
I guess with some C in down the ballot.
Well, you have some libraries, right? Like, yes, of course, right? That will interpret other stuff that Perl cannot do, right? Of course, but the bottom line is that. I was very proud of it, because it works. I love when it works.
Right. Well, David, you were talking in the lobby about how you're trying to move some data. Do you want to talk about that just briefly? Or is that a topic you'd rather not discuss?
No, I could give an overview. So,
Well, just give us an overview.
Now you have to.
so the company I work for, which is just somewhere over there. Yeah, okay, somewhere over there. Last time I got my, my work laptop had gone off lease, and they got a new one, and they tightened down a lot of things. So for example, my problem was I couldn't on my home network contact anything on my home network. So I couldn't, let's say,
So
I want to copy the PDF that's my pay stub from my work computer to my personal computer. They changed it to the network. The only thing it could talk to was to establish a VPN to their server. No USB.
They kind of. Walmart has that too, right? Like you totally isolated there, right? They for the longest time they didn't even give me a VPN, but yeah, I understand. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So it's not that I want to exfiltrate, data that should, but like I should be able to get my paycheck, so or my pay statement, whatever. So I thought, well, there's actually a number of side channels you could use. So simplest is maybe just to do the audio cable works. So you could use hook up an audio cable from one to the other. you could use something on the display, right? You could,
Like a
just I mean, you can make patterns that are easy to parse, that don't require sophisticated, image processing. Or you could even use the amount of network traffic. So let's say I was connected to the VPN, and I could just write something in Perl that would just time when it sends packets someplace else, and I could just listen for the if there's packets going, I could use that to put a signal.
It's like a project you would like us to.
No. So I did a proof of concept. So
yeah,
I looked up, found out, okay, what's the spec on a WAV file, and did a simple encoding of a file in Perl that would make a WAV file that's just 8-bit audio, one channel, 8 kilohertz, and just pulse encoded the data, bits and non-bits with a a given spacing, a marker that says here's the beginning and how much, how long it is, and that doesn't take very much code in Perl to do something like that. And then the bigger job is to then decode it on the other side. So I did something. So I got something that would decode it on the other side, and even with that base, just ones and zeros, I can get my pay statement. So
Really?
I'm only getting like, I'm not sure whether 100 bits a second or 100 bytes a second. It's pretty slow, but
that would be an excellent talk to do a presentation on this. I love it. I totally love it.
But the number of steps of refinement I would like to give to it, and maybe I haven't really looked at the level of noise and what. So the current the simplest decoding I've done is just do a rolling sum of 20 bytes of the absolute value of the signal, and if it's have an upper and lower threshold, whether it's a 1 or a 0.
Mm-hmm.
So Alex, were you suggesting him to make a presentation of this?
I was saying I had a reinventing the wheel kind of talk that I could develop.
Don't you think this is like this has merit?
I think so it's worth the talk.
It looks like we have the votes.
Yeah, I totally
Anyway,
vote for you to-
if you've been interested in writing that up, or making a presentation on it, that would be very entertaining.
Absolutely.
But the thing that I've got the most crudest implementation at the moment. There are some simple ways of extending it.
It doesn't matter. It's
Then I would like to
said,
have
this
this
would be extremely entertaining for starters, right?
All right.
But we all start with the crudest implementation anyways, at anything, right? You don't get to the final product until you actually banged your head on stuff, right? Yeah. Isn't it so? Man, I vote yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that would be great.
Dave, if you could do a talk about that, I think that would be very interesting.
Okay.
Audio, I was going to say compression. Using
I would
audio.
have called it reinventing the wheel. It's like
It's,
it's like reinventing the soft modem, pretending, but not paying attention to any of the history.
Soft modem 2020. Dave S. Sure. We'll see how that turns out. Great.
what was my suggestion there? I don't remember. It was about
Well, what I've got here is migration of procedural Perl to modern Perl and to other languages, e.g. .NET, including updating systems CPAN modules.
Might prepare something if there is interest about it. I think there's more interest relating to it for younger guys than us, right?
Sure. That kind of thing is, I think that's always relevant, because it expands your knowledge of how everything fits together.
Yeah.
It gives you a good, if we're mostly developers here, it gives you a bit of a sysadmin point of view of how things work, and it's also a good war story to tell during a job interview when you have somebody says, "Well, tell me about a recent project you worked on," so you can say, "Oh, well, here's something I did," and finally. Taking a piece of technology from one language and making it work in another language, or even upgrading it, is also something that is a very useful topic in a job interview, because that could be why you're being hired. You're being hired because they want you to be able to read Perl and then write something else, or at the very least come up with a technical document that, in as much detail as possible, describes what the existing system is doing. Which is why I think there's still a lot of COBOL running, because the banks are very conservative, and the one thing they know is that the existing COBOL works. Some consultant comes along and says, "I can convert this into modern code that works the same." The bank is going to say, "Well, if you can guarantee 100% that this works exactly the same, you've got my business. But you have to guarantee 100% that it's going to work correctly. Otherwise, suddenly we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day because your translation doesn't work."
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the bank has very expensive lawyers. So that's
funny.
why it's 2020, and the language was invented in the late 50s. So the language is
COBOL?
late 50s, early 60s.
Sorry, late 50s. Yes.
Late 50s. So the language is. I can't count that high. 60 years old. Anyway, it's 60 years old, and it's still in production because the banks are
new COBOL versions. Man.
Yeah, it's still. If you had some developer from the 60s look at the code, they'll go, "Yeah, I recognize this." The source code hasn't changed. The hardware it runs on, couldn't imagine something like that, but because back then it was these big, gigantic boxes in special air-conditioned rooms. They're probably still air-conditioned in the boxes, but the boxes are smaller.
But it's still IBM.
Probably still IBM.
Listen, IBM still has what is it called, RPG on their AS400s. There are still, you're talking about COBOL? I mean, you know nothing. I'm telling you, they still have stupid RPG that you have to count the bytes of your line. You have to count. I'm telling you, how many bytes are you writing on that editor, right? Or otherwise, it's not going to work.
That's bizarre.
It's still there, and there are still, like, especially banks, even banks, but especially government programs, government software that runs on RPG. I know, I worked for IBM. I worked for IBM like for 10 years. Right? I did sign a non-disclosure agreement, so that's why I'm not going to reveal a lot of it, but that one I can tell.
Sure.
I can tell. Yeah. The best thing that happened to me was then when they adopted Java as their new thing. That's the best thing. I loved it. Because I simply, I'm sorry to say this, I simply hate COBOL and RPG.
Java, I think their model wasn't that write once and debug everywhere.
Yeah, write once, debug everywhere.
But we're supposed to write once, run everywhere.
That's a joke, right? That's a joke. But it's reality.
I never used Java.
This is the reality. Right? You write once, debug everywhere. You are constantly maintaining Java. That's why IBM loves it. Right? Really?
The one problem I have with it, it's not portable across time.
No, it is not.
Which is
there's a lot of problems. Listen, there are a lot of problems.
That's one of the things that really impressed me about the Perl community and the modules on is the backward compatibility that they maintain.
It's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
You've got if you have something that was written 15 years ago, it'll still run unless you've done maybe something, one or two really stupid things that you shouldn't have done. But
Mhm.
most times, things will still run.
Yeah, the
It-
code,
Oh, yeah.
the code at my current place of work has got code that's 15 or even 20 years old and still works fine. Yeah. So it's certainly future-proofed. And you would think that would carry some weight with management, but well,
I don't think most managers are actually technical savvy. They're not very conscious of.
Yeah.
Not going to talk about it.
Yeah. All right.
There will not be a theme for a talk. We're going to talk about managers. By the way, my academic background is management. I have a degree in management and economics. Right?
Management economics, and you're writing
Economics and
software.
management. Huh?
And you're writing software.
You know why? Can you imagine why? Like imagine my degree is I took my degree in 1983.
Okay.
I came out and I'm basically a glorified accountant, right? And I couldn't get a job at all. But it so happens that my brother worked for a bank called BCCI that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh yeah. Banks of crooks and criminals.
Yes, that's the one. And he was like a programmer there, and he had these manuals and his terminal at home, like the ones with the telephone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was a kid, right? But and I used to babysit his kid. So this is me, like 14 years old, babysitting his kid, and the kid's sleeping, and I'm going through his books and manuals and whatever. So that's where I kind of learned or got an interest in programming. Now, like when I finished school, right, university, no job, right? And everyone, all the jobs I got, because back there in Portugal, when you do economics and management, one of the things that comes with it is that you actually got a degree in accounting or a diploma in accounting, right? So you're a registered accountant. Back then, not anymore. Right? But this is in the 80s, early 80s. And so, the only work I got was these guys. They were desperate, to get their taxes in order and their books in order, right, to present them to the government.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to me when everyone else refused them, like with 48 hours or a week to present them, right? It so happens there was, we already had the PC at the time. We also had Lotus 1, 2, 3. You can sum 2 and 2 now? And I was good with computers. So like I did that. I was able to do the damn thing, right? Because I created, a process. I wouldn't call it a program. And there was DBase 3.
I remember DBase.
Yeah, which had a language that you could program with.
Mhm.
So my tools were Lotus 1, 2, 3 and DBase 3, right? So I was able actually to produce a DBase 3 application, right? That would, I would feed all these little papers that these guys got me, separate them, whatever, feed them into my system, and I would produce, right, like all ledgers.
So it was like doing a tax return.
Yeah, tax return, but this is complex stuff for companies and whatever. And I could do it like fast, right? So what happens is that the needs, made it happen, right? Like I started dedicating myself to improving this process. And that's the only way I made money. I never, ever did anything else since then. Never. Been always like that.
Yeah, I know one of the
when
guys.
I moved to Canada was like in 92 that I came here, right? And then this is like when pros and Linux, the Trovals started this thing there, whatever. And then, I created an ISP in Toronto, like a dial-up ISP, $20 flat, based in Linux, and with all my billing done in Perl and whatever. And I got hired by Sprint because of that, right? By Sprint Canada. And that's never went back to managing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't need a degree in computer science to work in this field, pretty much.
But listen,
Any degree is fine.
in the '80s, early '80s, there was no computer science as that. Not in Portugal. What you had was applied math.
Yeah, well,
Where you would learn
applied math works too, because
abstract,
applied math gives you basically logic, and once you've got a good handle on logic, then it's just a matter of,
which
reading through the
fortunately,
manuals.
if you look in economics, we did have applied math as well at the time, and fortunately it made the bridge that I needed to think appropriately, right, to use my brain appropriately. But that's the story. As I became a programmer, and you know what? I'm back to university to take a degree in history. I'm taking a master's in history because I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I want to retire writing articles and books about history.
Yeah, well, if you graduated university in '83, maybe you're close to retirement.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I look younger than I am. Thank you.
Okay, well, we got some ideas for February talks and March talks.
So this is important because I need some time to prepare something.
Yeah, this is fine. You know what? I'll send these. So I've got 3 ideas for February, which won't necessarily happen in February. The TPM website, the migration of procedural Perl from Sergio, and using audio for data transmission soft modem 2020, Davis, and then see what you can put together, and hopefully at least one of these will come out. I did a presentation on an SQL tidy module that I've been working on, and I think I need to put myself under some pressure and say it's going to be ready for release in March. If I say February, I'm going to panic and it won't get done. I'm going to put myself down for a talk of that.
You already got Olaf to do something in February, right?
Yeah, and you know what? We'll see.
I don't think Olaf is going to be.
No, not Olaf. So I'm going to put release of SQL tidy. I've been writing a module that basically formats SQL in a nice way, and the thing is, I had it ready to go, and then realized that I wanted to change the way I work, which of course is. Anyway, that's okay.
Now that you talk about SQL, right? That would be nice to have someone, giving some SQL insights. Right?
Yeah, the other thing the other thing that I've been fascinated about is how does the SQL parser take a select statement and figure out how to break it down. And in fact, I've seen what order it does all the things in. And basically, first it looks at the tables, and then I guess it looks at the join statements, and then it looks at the where and having clauses, and then it does the aggregates, and then eventually it looks at the fields that you want to show. So basically, it kind of funnels it down like that. And of course, if there are problems anywhere along the way, then it says, there's a problem.
And you know what? I discovered a problem with a connector. What connector was that? When I was at Walmart, we were having a huge freaking problem.
The connector, you mean the connection of the database?
Yeah. It was like they used to connect to the Microsoft SQL database, right? They use this old connector.
ODBC?
Sybase.
Oh, Sybase.
A Sybase connector. Not the ODBC, because ODBC is too slow. The other one is supposedly faster.
And ODBC has another problem. At a client, I'm connecting to SQL Server through ODBC, and you can only have one statement handle active at once, which is really irritating.
There you go, but the other one has only one handle active at a time, right? One problem. The other problem, it doesn't recognize text fields. Or, in other words, anything that is over 256 characters, like a varchar or whatever, right? You cannot write to it.
Through ODBC or Sybase?
To the Sybase connector, which is based on the ODBC.
Oh.
Anyways.
Or is the Sybase, because MS, so the Microsoft SQL Server was Originally,
It's an offshot of
originally it was
It's an
Sideways,
offshot
right?
of Sideways. Yes, it's based on Sideways.
They bought
Actually,
it.
they bought Sideways. They created their SQL server based on Sideways. This was a huge problem for me because it is not documented, by the way. And I had this this table, right, with not that large, man. It had like only like 20 million records, right? Which we all know it's not significant at all, right? 20 million records, right? And it kept freaking timing out on me, right? Like I did not know why the damn thing was timing out because if you run like directly on the SQL Server
terminal?
Studio thing, if you
Command
run, the query, of course it doesn't time out. It takes some time, but it doesn't time out, right? When you run it through the Perl code, through the
DBI, yeah.
to the DBI Sybase connector, then I discovered we went like eliminating half of the possibilities or whatever, and I discovered it has to be this, right? You have to be the field, the text field on the SQL server that the Sybase connector could not communicate with. But this is an empirical observation, like this is not scientific. I had no time to explore that. Right?
Mhm.
So having someone that actually knows a lot about this would be really interesting, and fixing the stupid connector would be really interesting. One of us could do that. One of us that has time and patience to do it.
Yeah, but I don't imagine that would be simple.
I have documentation about this one, by the way, right? So if you find someone that interested or whatever, I can share it with you guys.
Yeah,
Because I was really pissed, like I spent
I think
like maybe a
I'd
full
recommend-
week banging my head on this one.
put your question on the mailing list. You're on the mailing list, right?
Yes, of course.
So put it on the mailing list and see if somebody knows about it or can think of some other
Yeah.
resources. Because that's
How many
also
members do we have on a mailing list?
I'm not sure.
Over 100, right?
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few, and they're also. The last time I looked at the Perlmongers, I was like, oh, how many members are there? And there's over 200. I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. 200 members, and we get half a dozen people out to a meeting. That's odd. I don't know. Maybe they're just members because they're like, well, this sounds interesting. I'll never go, but what the heck? Or, this sounds like an interesting language. I should pick up. I should go to a meeting one day. Anyway,
Well,
that's fine.
when I started coming to the meetings was like maybe 5 years ago here in Toronto. Because I'm a member of the Perlmongers back in Europe as well.
Oh yeah.
Lisbon. But here, like 5 years ago, I think, we used to have like 8, 10, 12.
Yeah, it used to be
Yeah.
a larger group. For a while, we were at Young and Bloor, and that seemed to have pretty good attendance.
We had some meetings at the Wanda offices as well, and I'm a little one.
Yeah,
So,
I worked at Oanda for a couple of years, so yeah, there.
You're from Wanda too?
Yeah, I worked with Mike Stock and Dave Doyle.
Yeah.
Mike Stock, both Mike Stock and Dave Doyle ran this group for a while.
Yeah.
So then they I think Dave kind of got tired and he passed it on to Olaf.
Oh, he was totally dying to be.
Well, he was burning out because
He was burned.
he was working very hard to come up with a presentation every month, and it's hard to come up with a good,
Yes,
original,
it is.
interesting presentation, and to do it once a month is even harder. And he's married and he has 2 small kids, so
What is he doing now? He's in the States now, right?
he just started a new job recently and was in California for training, which is why he didn't come to our December social. And I forget the name of the company.
By the way, I wanted to come. I told you guys that I was coming in December, but I was stuck on a delayed flight in Rio de Janeiro, and
Oh.
I couldn't get here on time.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I appreciate it. At least we out of a meeting room.
Yeah, well, I mean, and December is a good time to get out and have a social evening because there's so much other stuff going on in December. Plus, if somebody's doing a presentation for December, it can eat into panic last minute gift shopping or
Yeah.
preparation for family visits or whatever else you've got going on in December.
Do you plan to have a social like in June or something like that?
We haven't, but we could certainly do that. Have a barbecue or something like that.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. You see, that's exactly what I'm thinking about. Barbecue, something outdoors, take advantage of the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, well, I could have at my place. I'm thinking, no, I don't have a big house. Oh, well.
I live in an apartment, so I'm safe. but I have friends that would happily host a barbecue
Yeah.
in Toronto, in town, right?
Or you just find a
What's that?
patio someplace, right?
A patio, yeah.
We could also do a public patio. Some place where they are geek friendly.
Yeah, I met some friends at the old spaghetti factory on Sunday night, and
Excellent.
that was a bit of a geek fest. We ended up talking about avionics and the crash of the 737 MAX planes.
Yeah.
And that.
You see,
That's,
socials kind of open up a lot of other themes that are very interesting.
I also ended up talking about I have a new gas furnace, and it's got a circulating pump, and I wanted to get something like a pi to look at some inputs, whether the furnace is running and what the supply and return water temperatures are. And if the furnace is if the furnace is off and the supply and return temperatures are like 25 degrees or less, then turn off the circulating pump because it's not necessary. Especially if the water is like 20 degrees or less, then all you're doing at that point is cooling the house. So I just thought it'd be fun to do, but I have no experience with these small computers. And so they suggested, an Apple Pi would be good, and they suggested Creatron and Sayal.com, to where places I could look online and buy them. And Creatron, I think, is up in Markham or something like that, so it's close. So if they ship it, I should have it within a day or two. So that wouldn't necessarily be Perl related, so I'm not sure I could do a talk about it.
Linux.
But it would be Linux related, definitely.
This is Linux
Well,
related.
it doesn't even have to be Perl related. We've had non-Perl related talks.
We have.
Yeah, we could have no problem. But at any rate, those little computers, right, that
Yeah.
you're talking about, they do learn Pro. They do run Pro
Yeah, it's
in Linux. Right?
it's Linux. Yeah, and
I
there's
have a Raspberry Pi right at home, right? A whole kit.
Yeah,
And
and I think there's even a version of
surprise I had
Debian
was
called
a Pro
Raspbian.
version.
Yeah.
There is nothing written that you cannot create solution in those little things using Pro. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to use C or whatever. You can use Pro to do
Yeah.
stuff. Why not? Still, just say it.
Okay,
I'm gonna become an historian soon.
I'm gonna see. Folk, are you still there? Hopefully you've been getting some of this discussion. He's not talking right now. Anyway, Folko, if you have any idea for meetings and the next topics for presentations in the next little while, let me know. Email me, send it to the mailing list. And I have no idea if I'm talking to a dead screen here or not.
Well, you probably will see the record.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. There he is. Hello. Hello, Folko. I think I'm going to wrap up soon. I think we've talked about nothing for a little over an hour, and I think we're running out of nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks to Flight Network for the pizza and the beer. It was delicious. And now we're going to go to the pub and have beer.
So you're the host.
Yeah, we both work
You
there.
go.
He's
Thank
the
you.
host, I just joined.
Yeah, so